Good afternoon. Thanks so much for joining us today. Welcome to a very special edition of our webinar series, Convergence of Technology and Wetland Science. The Ecobot team is here in Raleigh today for NMEBC, and we are broadcasting live from the conference. My name is Mike Connors. I'm the Director of Customer Success at Ecobot. Today's conversation is going to be about streamlining environmental reviews. We've got a great group of panelists here with us today. I'm excited to hear from everyone. They'll all get introduced in just a minute, but just some housekeeping before we start off. I want to let everyone know that this is being recorded, and if you want to see the recording later, we're going to send a link to everyone who registered, so you'll be able to get the recording. Down at the bottom, if you see at the bottom of your Zoom screen, there is a Q&A button. Please use that one for questions that you want to kick off a discussion with our panelists. We will potentially pivot over to a question during the conversation, but also we will go to some Q&A at the end as well. So please don't be shy. Ask any questions that you have. Keep the conversation going. I'm going to kick it over to Jeremy Shavy, co-founder of Ecobot, and my colleague here. Jeremy, let's get it started.
Great, thanks, Mike, and welcome back, everyone. For those of you who have participated in any of our previous webinars, pretty excited. We're broadcasting live here at the National Mitigation Banking Conference in Raleigh, North Carolina. So pretty excited to be in a in-person event and talking about policy and about where protection of wetlands and some other sensitive habitats are going. And looking forward to pushing off with you all today. And like Mike said, we've got a great group of people that have come together for our presentation and our discussion today. And so for those of you who have been here in the past and for those of you who haven't, I'm the Chief Scientific Officer with Ecobot and have been doing wetland delineations and threatened and endangered species studies for the last 18 years. And I always like to start off with something just to help us remember why we're all doing this, why we're in some ways in love with our amazing planet that we get to call home, and the beauty and the power of the balance of science, policy, and regulation. And a big part of what we're talking about here today is the streamlining of part of our regulatory process, the environmental review process, and what that can look like for projects, and with what between what Ecobot is helping to create and what the U.S. Fish and Wildlife is creating with their IPaC program. We've got a great show for you today. So this is going to be our flow for the afternoon here. We're going to do some brief self-introductions here for everyone that's on the panel and presenting team. I'm going to do a very initial top-level discussion of the biological data ecosystem, what that looks like. Give a very brief Ecobot intro for those of you who are here for the first time. And then we're going to go into a very in-depth intro into IPaC as well as a demo. And then we'll announce our next webinar topic for August. And hopefully, if all goes according to plan, we'll have about 20 minutes for Q&A at the end. And for those of you who are still coming into the room, just so you know, any questions that are related to subject material or you may want to address to the panelists or any of us or to stimulate conversation, click on the Q&A button down at the bottom of the screen. If you hover down with your cursor, you'll see that come up. There's also a chat box down there as well. So if you have something you want to address just to one of the speakers or presenters directly, you can just ping them directly on there. Or if you're having any technical things, you just have questions about IPaC or Ecobot that are slightly tangent to what we're talking about today, you can throw those in the chat box there too, which looks like some people are starting to use. That's great. So we're seeing that at play. All right, so let's start off with a little bit of introductions to the team. Victoria has been helping me put this together for, gosh, almost 2 months now. Megan Lang introduced us and we hit it off and we're like, yes, this would be a great fit, great opportunity for U.S. Fish and Wildlife to get in front of more consultants, and great opportunity for us to team on another interesting subject material here. So Victoria, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, and we'll we'll go down the line.
Great, thanks, Jeremy. I'm Victoria Foster. I'm the National Program Manager for IPaC and for EPM, which are two software packages in the Fish and Wildlife Service. I'm part of the Headquarters Ecological Services group in US Fish and Wildlife Service. And prior to doing this, I've been in this role about 4.5 years. I've spent a total of over 20 years in the regulatory realm with endangered species and wetlands. I did a significant amount of Section 7 work for endangered species down in South Florida. So this is now just a different view into how we can use technology to help us all do our jobs. And excited to be joining you guys on this panel today. Thanks, Jeremy.
Great, thanks, Victoria. And so Shelby's a brilliant biologist with US Fish and Wildlife as well, and she's going to be doing some of the demo today. So Shelby, you want to introduce yourself, please? All right, we're not hearing you, Shelby. All right.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, there we go.
Okay, thank you. I'm Shelby Kilheffer. I'm a biologist with the Headquarters IPaC team, and I work with Tori. And as she mentioned, I will be giving you a demo a little bit later in today's presentation.
Great, thank you, Shelby. And then very excited that we have Lane and Michelle joining us today as well. Lane's a project manager with Michigan Department of Transportation. And of course, they're using IPaC fairly frequently. So Lane, you want to introduce yourself here, please?
Sure. My name is Lane Massoud. I have a master's degree in urban planning from the University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee. Before coming into the NEPA world, I worked a lot in public transportation. For about the past year, I've been the local agency program coordinator in the environmental services section at MDOT. So I mostly review categorical exclusion projects to make sure they're meeting all the NEPA requirements, but occasionally I'll usher an environmental assessment through the process as well. So I'm happy to be here.
Great, thank you, Lane. And Michelle from my home state here, North Carolina DOT, and is working with IPaC data sets as part of their Atlas program. So Michelle, you want to bring yourself in, please?
Yes, hi everyone. I am Michelle Hobgood. For those of you that know me from DOT, my name is Michelle Wharf. I'm recently married, so working on getting that name change implemented. My background is in environmental biology, environmental management, and GIS. I have education-wise, I have 2 masters from the Nicholas School at Duke University. I do Project Atlas here with the Department of Mitigation at North Carolina DOT, and I am the business team lead for Atlas. And yes, we do use IPaC data on the regular.
Great, thank you. So let's go ahead and jump off and take a quick look at where things are going in the biological data ecosystem. We've frequently leaned into the new wetlands data ecosystem, what that looks like. And so as we expand our capabilities here at Ecobot and our friendships and collaborations with other organizations and agencies continue to grow, so too does our understanding of how we want to present this concept. It's a similar concept as maybe we've seen before. Here's what we typically think of as our ecosystem, but when we're looking to collect data in order to work with planning, with policy, with any sort of consulting or due diligence work, there's a whole mess of new types of equipment that help us to understand how this ecosystem comes together. And so the data portion of that, of course, is built by what a lot of people are familiar with, of course, GIS software, which we're going to be getting into pretty deeply here today with IPaC. But also, what are the other really important pieces once you're out doing the field work, the GNSS receivers, the satellites, the drones that help us to remote sense and to see things, model things, look at changes over time, but then also looking at what are the field applications that are utilized in order to create better data from the ground, to refine what we think is going to be out there with what actually exists, to provide the monitoring for specific sites, and how all of that comes together and allows all of us to do our work better. And so that's a big part of what we're working here with Fish and Wildlife and DOT and Ecobot here today, is all these awesome collaborations where we can work together and create a better future. Most of you are familiar with some of the new GNSS receivers that are available out there. For those of you who aren't, here are some of our favorites: the R1s, the SX Blues, the EOS Aero series, and the Juniper Geodes, allowing for sub-meter accurate level geospatial data collection in the field, especially when paired with applications that allow for that. So in this particular ecosystem, Ecobot and field maps, of course, work very strongly together in terms of allowing you to do work-specific workflow in Ecobot, but then also allowing for generalized collection of point-specific data around photos and mapping in field maps. For those of you who see the little warning symbol or the Ghostbusters no through field collector, through collector, most of you know that collector is being replaced with field maps at the end of 2021 here. So just kind of a predecessor and reminder for those of you who are out there who haven't made that transition yet, that it's coming. Very brief and high level introduction to what we're doing over here at Ecobot. Again, as the Chief Scientific Officer and one of the founders of Ecobot, having done wetland delineations and T&E work for the last 18 years, just saw a huge gap in the innovation and capability of taking what data, what observations we're seeing in the field, and then to ascend that in a digital format, through a cloud, in order to allow other data managers and geospatial modelers, et cetera, to put together the ends that we're looking for around regulatory projects, whether it's botanical assessments, baseline inventories, threatened and endangered species studies, or wetland delineations. And so we are at Ecobot really hyper-focused on specific workflows. And so our main point of focus right now is the Army Corps of Engineers regulatory wetland delineations, and really creating a lot of incredible efficiency in that workflow, from geospatial data collection in the field to the actual data that's required on those regulatory forms for the reports for all the WOTUS studies and projects that people are working on, as well as monitoring projects. So I wanted to show you briefly before we change gears here. Pretty excited about the transition over the last couple of years, what we've seen in terms of utilization. And so these are projects, wetland projects that are being conducted across the United States, kind of on a day count here. And I think what kind of this reiterates more than anything is the adoption and the excitement around what we're able to do with looking at remote sensing data, and how what we're gathering in the field can also give us a lot more data that can be utilized for modeling again later. So I'm going to go ahead and pause there, because the main focus of our conversation here today is US Fish and Wildlife's IPaC program. And so I want to introduce again Victoria, who is the coordinator from US Fish and Wildlife. And I'm going to let you take over the screen share from here, Victoria. And thanks again for helping me put this together.
Thanks, Jeremy. Hopefully you guys can see my screen. Yes, thank you. So for others that can see my screen, if you have the hand raise function in your Zoom platform, I would love it if you would put your digital hand up if you have used IPaC for any reason, even just to go in there and see what we're about. So, and your actual hand, we can see you on video. And someone who can see all the hands, because I don't have my Zoom screen up, can keep track just kind of if we're getting a lot or a few. If you have used IPaC, this should look familiar to you, because this is our homepage. And here is the link to IPaC online. I like to point out that we are a project planning tool to streamline the environmental process, specifically focused on Section 7 Endangered Species Act consultation. And a couple things about this page. we changed our login at the end of December 2020. So if you haven't been in to visit IPaC this year yet, you'll need to set up an account with login.gov. If you use USA Jobs or a number of other government sites, you might be familiar with it. You'll link this to your IPaC account. You'll use login.gov each time. If you are a government employee, that needs to be linked through your CAC or your PIV card. The other new things, this box changed at the end of December 2020 as well, just highlights our new functionality that you're going to hear more about later. And something I like to mention here, and I'm going to make sure to hone in on this again later, is we have a beta site for IPaC, and it's available to everyone. All of our functionality that we have on our production live IPaC is also here. Sometimes the data is not exactly the same because we don't back up our data perfectly across the platforms, but you can test and try everything we have in this beta site and not create real records, not email a live biologist. So again, I'll provide these out so you have them after as well. So a little bit about IPaC and who we are, what we have, where we're going. This is our vision. It is driving what we build. It's been our vision since early 2017. And essentially, we're trying to improve the process of Section 7 consultation. And we're not aimed at the really important gray matter exercises that are happening across the country between biologists and action agencies and consultants. And we collaborate and talk about these projects and work on these projects together. However, we thought we could use technology and make the process itself easier, more consistent, more predictable, more transparent for our partners and our Fish and Wildlife Service biologists. And we think that if we can make that process easier, we can even drive better conservation outcomes. We have some objectives that are stepped down from this process, and many of these are, or from this vision rather, many of these are explicit in the vision or inherent in the vision, but a few that I like to point out that aren't quite spelled out, that we think that improving this will also improve our public accountability and credibility. We think that we can reduce some duplication and effort using IPaC tools and account for some smaller workforces that we're seeing across all kinds of different agencies and companies. And we also think that we can facilitate data integration and use technology to keep our processes relevant, help with reporting, helpful information, and capturing that in the same way. So a lot of objectives that IPaC targeted at accomplishing with the tools that we offer. And a little bit about IPaC's timeline. Most people don't realize we've been around for over a decade, and we've been slowly and steadily increasing the tools available to help with the process of consultation since we went live with delivering official species lists way back in 2010. We added some conservation measure reports in 2015 through a functionality called impact analysis. And I mention these if you're a long-term IPaC user, you might have been using that functionality, and that has sunsetted as of the end of December when we brought out Consultation Package Builder, because Consultation Package Builder is doing that functionality and providing it at an even more granular level that's germane to your project. So impact analysis was getting us through until we could release Consultation Package Builder, and now that functionality has been overcome with Consultation Package Builder. We brought out some more new functionality in 2016 called determination keys. I'm going to tell you a little more about, and then some other improvements through the years to get to where we are today. So with all of that, what are we doing? We're serving almost 900 visitors a day on average, and we have over 46,500 registered IPaC users. Users can work collaboratively on a project and share files, which I like to point out because sometimes it gets challenging depending on who you're with and email restraints, etc. So there are file size restraints in IPaC. Outside of that, though, you can add whoever you want to your project, regardless of who they work for, and you can all see the same thing at the same time, which can be helpful. Those official species lists I mentioned, we've been delivering them for quite some time, including the helpful information where that's available, that's automatically attached. And we've delivered over 275,000 of these in the last 3 years. On average, we deliver around 300 official species lists daily out of IPaC on behalf of our field offices. They have supporting information right now for 95 species across 20 field offices. And I know our offices are working on getting more of that available. So those are things like general survey guidelines, best management practices, conservation measures. They're kind of broad brush for the species. And how IPaC does that is anytime that species is on your list, we provide links out to those documents so you don't have to go out and hunt for them in a separate place. It's all in one place for the IPaC user. This is a big savings of time, just this particular functionality for our staff, but as well as folks can get official species lists pretty much 24/7. And the only thing I like to mention, if we have anyone joining us or watching this in the future that works in the Pacific Islands, we've had to work with them a little extra. They have some unique geography concerns with their island chains, as well as over 500 listed species that we needed to make sure we had their maps correct. So hopefully this fall, they have an ETA to join IPaC, and you'll be able to use the functionality in IPaC for Pacific Islands projects as well. Along with those official species lists, we deliver determination keys. And these help streamline Section 7 consultation. They're logically structured set of questions. Think about a botany guide, a dichotomous botany guide, botany key. We brought them out in 2016 as a means to determine whether a project qualified for a programmatic Section 7 consultation and go the next step and deliver automated letters for those projects that do qualify. And so, as I mentioned, they're essentially dichotomous keys. They're not novel to IPaC. These things have been used in paper version. The one you see here is a couple decades old. It's actually not an IPaC, but I use it because it's one of the older paper ones I could get my hands on. It's been around in South Florida for a really long time. So we're not reinventing the wheel with these, just using technology to deliver them a little more efficiently and effectively. And a lot of the ways we can do that is IPaC leverages geospatial data. So we can automatically answer a bunch of questions for our users based on their project intersect and our background layers. It allows us to much better track the use and implementation of these programmatic consultations because we see all of the projects coming through in the same fashion. I mentioned that automated letters. Some of these projects, if you qualify and you're the action agency, you can be done consultation in a half an hour or less for your smaller projects that qualify for a programmatic with a D key. And you'll have your letter in hand via email. The biologist on our end gets a notification so they can take a look over it. They'll reach out to you if something looks weird. And then if you don't hear anything, you're fine. You should be able to move forward. And as I was just describing, that's a lot of time saving on both sides, because this also logs all of these information, these keys, all of this project information into our record keeping software in a consistent manner that really allows us to do better reporting and save our staff a lot of administrivia time, a lot of data entry that we can automate for them through IPaC. And the other thing I like to highlight here is we do actually really nudge consistency with these as well. So as we determine, if we work on a determination key with an office, the neighboring office comes in and they work on the same species and they say, hey, we want to do that too. We say, well, these are the questions that they used over there. So hopefully we're moving the needle there too. So you're seeing similar biological logic, similar questions if you work on the same species across its range. And if you see differences, we like to add in information that helps you understand why we might ask something different in one area versus another. This is about how much they've been used in the last 3 calendar years, which is over 33,000 times. You can see based on this graph that our Northern Long-Eared Bat 4D rule determination key and our Federal Highways Transportation Projects determination key for the Northern Long-Eared Bat, Indiana Bat, are our top ones that get run. With that said, we've got a couple coming in that are starting to get a lot more use. And the first half of 2021 numbers for both determination key use and official species lists are on track to well exceed any of our previous years. So these are continuing to grow, not only in the number of people that use them, but also in the number that are available. We have 13 available on production now. We're working on another 10. So these will continue to be offered. It'll cover more areas, more projects, more species over time. So those functionalities were all available coming into 2020. And then at the end of 2020, we've now brought out our consultation package builder, which is an exciting new piece of functionality. We envisioned this as being a TurboTax process for a biological assessment, where it walks the user bit by bit, section by section, item by item on everything we would think about wanting to ask for a consultation request biological assessment. What do we need to know for these species? What do we need to know about your project? And why we did that is because when trying to figure out what took consultation so long, the biggest thing we came up with was that we don't get the information in the door that we need on day one. So how could we help a user think through all of the things that we want, all of the things we need to make these analyses, these conclusions, these response, consultation responses? What if we could get it on day one, or really much closer? And so that's how Consultation Package Builder was built, around trying to reduce that back and forth with the request for additional information that can eat up so much time in the process. It helps users develop a good action area. As I mentioned, it helps users think through, analyze, document all of the potential effects and proposed conservation actions with a project. It leverages data from Effect Pathway Manager, which I'm going to touch on really briefly in the next slide, but it gives this data to you in detail, and it's really relevant to your project and your species. And on our end, it provides a consistently formatted document. So our biologists know every time I want to see the map, I go to section 3. Every time I want to see the effects determination table, I go to the end. So they can look for stuff in the same place all of the time. And in a moment, when I'm done talking in like 2 slides, give or take, Shelby's going to give you a tour of this, because seeing it in action is much more compelling. We also have videos available that you can sit through and watch the demos that are more comprehensive. So I said I was going to mention the Effect Pathway Manager software. This is an internal-only Fish and Wildlife Service software package, and it implements a structured, systematic approach to evaluating the causal relationships between activities and potential effects to federally listed species. It does this in a really well-thought way. Our biologists populate it internally, and then it feeds Consultation Package Builder. And so when we have information in Effect Pathway Manager for a species, the package builder leverages all of this data in a really granular, specific way and delivers prompts to the users to explain resource needs for the species and to analyze suggested stressors that we know often will happen with that activity on that species, to think about recommended conservation measures. So we're basically feeding you the information ahead of time that you would get if you went back and forth with a biologist when talking to them on that species. Right now, 219 species have published pathways. That means they are available. If they're published, we're showing them out to the public. 72 more have pathways being built. 13 of all of those are resolved taxon. So we do store that data. If they ever go back on the list, we'll start delivering them again. We work through top-level activity deconstructions, think road construction or mining, and provide activity prompts for you as well. And as we also provide conservation measures. So a little about where we're going in the next couple of years. IPaC's moving into the cloud, which is a big deal for us. It's going to give us faster service, we hope. We're integrating with something called Ecosphere, which is our next generation record keeping software for Fish and Wildlife Service. We're also adding even better functions and enhancements to Package Builder as soon as we're able, and improving our software for Effect Pathway Manager, improving our software for DKeys. As I mentioned, we're releasing more determination keys, getting more species populated into Effect Pathway Manager. And we're continuing to enlist practitioners through training and in-reach and outreach and opportunities like this to reach out and say, hey, these are the tools available. So if you have a need for your group or any other groups that you're with for training on IPaC or information about IPaC, please reach out to us. Here are the environments I mentioned before. Live projects, real projects that you actually want consultation on should go here. Everything else that you're just checking out IPaC should be done in beta. And as I mentioned, thank you so much for this opportunity. If you would like to set something up, please email us anytime. This email reaches the entire team. We're really good about getting back to you. And we'll also be providing out some links after the presentation to a whole bunch of videos that you can access through the YouTube links with full demonstrations of all of our software, and the links that are on this presentation to get to email us and get to the platform. With that, I want to turn it over to Shelby, who's going to give you a demo of Package Builder, our quick tour, see it in action.
Thanks, Tori. Can everybody hear me? We've been having some audio concerns. Okay, great. Thank you so much. So I'm going to share my screen. There we go. Okay. So hopefully you see IPaC beta. Jeremy, can you give me a thumbs up if you can? Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay. So as Tori mentioned, we have two different platforms that are available when you're doing a project analysis. The first one is production or live IPaC. And that's where Tori mentioned you will want to do your project reviews if you're initiating consultation and starting those official correspondence with Fish and Wildlife Service. If you are learning the system, or you're just kind of testing things out, or you want to see what could happen, what tools are available in IPaC, we highly recommend that you use our beta platform. And that's what I'm showing you on the screen here. You'll see that there's beta in the URL, there's a beta shield in the top left, and there's this big banner at the bottom reminding you that you're on beta. So this is the functionality between production IPaC and beta IPaC are the same. We're just talking about actually writing official correspondence in our tracking systems. Beta does not do that. Beta simply creates documents for the user's access and does not say anything directly to the service, where production or live IPaC, which is linked in this banner, will write official records in our Tails system, which is an internal system for reporting. And it will also send those official correspondence to the local Fish and Wildlife Field Office to start those conversations. So just wanted to share that caveat at the beginning to let you know where we are today. I'm going to start a new project here, so I'm going to click Get Started, and that's going to bring me to the first step in the IPaC process. You'll see we have this map, and here you have a couple options. You can either hand draw your location, or you can drag and drop a shapefile right onto the mapper, which is what I'm going to show you today. And then after you have your shape on your map, you can click Continue. This shape is your project location. Where are you doing your project on the ground? The first step in the IPaC process is to obtain a resource list. So this is a little bit broader than the official species list, which is required by the Section 7 of the Endangered Species Act. The resource list, as you'll notice, has a lot of information here that we're going to walk through just high level quickly to show you what we have. So the first is we have our list of endangered, threatened, proposed, and candidate species. This list is managed by the Ecological Services Program of the Fish and Wildlife Service. And if you scroll down, we have access to those species survey guidelines that Tori mentioned earlier. If the local field office has this information available for any of the species on your list, we make it available to the action agency right at the very beginning, so they can take a look at these and maybe design their project with these in mind. There's also a link to each of the species profiles for all species that are on the list. These are species that could be present within the project's location. And then if there were any critical habitat, they would be listed at the bottom here as well. The next tab on the left, we see a list of migratory birds. These are birds of conservation concern managed by the Migratory Bird Program of the Fish and Wildlife Service. This isn't necessarily all migratory birds, but these are the ones that MigrBirds has identified as birds of conservation concern. And similar to the Endangered Species tab, each of these tiles here sends you to some more information about the species, including a probability of presence histogram for what time of year this bird may be in your project location. Next, we have a list of facilities. These are any National Wildlife Refuge lands or fish hatcheries that occur within the project location. We have a list here of all aquatic habitats that are subject to regulation under Section 404 of the Clean Water Act. Once in a while, we have to click this try again. It'll simply reload, and you'll have an interactive map of all of those aquatic habitats on the screen that you can click on and learn some more information about. And one other thing I'll mention, so we only have 4 tabs on the left-hand side here today. That's because the project location that I drew is in central Pennsylvania, so it's a landlocked area. If I was in a coastal area like Florida or Alaska, and there may be marine mammals available in my project location, we would have a 5th tab on the left-hand side here called Marine Mammals. And those are mammals that should be considered under the Marine Mammal Protection Act. You'll notice for some reason the wetlands map is not loading right now, so I'm just going to skip through it for today. But if you would like to see more information about that, we mentioned this in our demonstration videos that we'll share at the end of our presentation. And there's some more information if you actually go into IPaC. Sometimes there's a little bug that will take a little bit of time for the system to reload. So I'm going to define my project, and I'm just going to add a quick name here. I'll add a description. These are searchable in your projects in IPaC if you want to come back to this project later. And that brings you to the project homepage. So you'll see we have a picture of our project location. We have a link here of members of the project. So this is available for the action agency to share with anybody else that they would like to take a look at this or that needs to contribute to the project. These can be federal action agencies, these can be contractors or federal representatives. Simply, you just add an email here. It doesn't have to be any particular domain. It doesn't have to be a government email address. This is anyone that you would like to have access to your project information. If they're going to review it or add something else, they will receive an email allowing them access to this project in IPaC. There's a list of all documents associated with the project as well. So you see those 2 survey guidelines that we were offered at our resource list stage, and there's a copy of our project shapefile. As we go through the rest of this process, we're going to create some additional documents in IPaC, and each of those PDFs is then stored on the project homepage in our Documents tab as well. We have a link back to those resources that we just covered. We have the local field office contact information in the bottom right-hand corner. And then we have this handy button that will bring you to the Endangered Species Act review portion of IPaC. You'll see this is a 4-step process. I'm going to walk through each of these relatively quickly, so I'm just going to click continue for now. We'll talk about each of them as we get there. The first step here is to request an official species list. An official species list is a letter from the local Fish and Wildlife Field Office that assists the action agency in evaluating potential impacts of their project under Section 7 of the Endangered Species Act. This list will contain all threatened, endangered, candidate, and proposed species, including designated and proposed habitat that may occur within the area. And each field office has a little bit of flexibility in other information that they can include as well. Some field offices add some information about bald and golden eagle accent and a few other things at this stage. But in IPaC, when you click request a species list, on beta, we're simply going to add our contact information. You'll see mine is already added here because I've done this before and I saved it to my profile. You'll classify your project under some category that fits what you're doing. I'm going to do transportation. When I click submit official species list request, on beta, I'm only going to create a PDF document that I can download and review. If I was on production or live IPaC, I would be creating that PDF that I can download and review. And I would also, IPaC would automatically send that PDF to our internal tails system to track that for the future. And it would also send that PDF to the local field office. So that's why we recommend if you're doing some testing and training that you do it in beta. So if you click these buttons and you create these documents, you just create them for yourself and not creating any official records. The next step in the IPaC process is determination keys. I'm not going to get into these too deeply because Tori talked about them a little bit in her presentation as well, just for sake of time. When it loads, I'll tell you a little bit more about D keys. They are a logically structured set of questions that assist the action agency in evaluating their project under confines of either a programmatic biological opinion or an internal standing analysis. Once these analyses are drafted into this step-by-step process, we can convert them into IPaC and create determination keys. So we're having a little bit of technical issues here. Let me try another way. I might have to refresh my screen. Try that. Sorry for the delay.
Will it let you go straight to the Analyze Project tab?
Let's try that. I'm not sure what's going on. I apologize for the delay, everyone. Let me stop loading. And I'll try to go right to the consultation package builder and skip D keys. I wonder if Theta is having a problem. This happens once in a while. Not usually when we're in the middle of a demo. Let me try something else. I'm going to open another screen and see if I can load it again and come in, and I'll just switch my screen share if I can do that. Okay, so it looks like we have a bit of delay on the other screen as well. I'm not sure, I don't want to waste our time here because I know we only have a few minutes left. So what might make the most sense, Corey, if I send you our video, could you possibly start the video at this point and we'll just have it, we can do the walkthrough of CPB through the video?
Give me 1 second. Maybe we can just get it back up. It'll be down for a few minutes.
Will it? Okay.
We are closing in on time. So Jeremy, I'll actually ask you to weigh in on this. Do you want us to try and find the CPB portion of the video and play it, or would you like us to send that out so the panel has some time to talk?
Yeah, I think let's just trim it out. And yeah, because I want to make sure we can have some time to talk and answer any questions as well.
Okay. Sorry about this, guys. I'm not sure what happened. But I will stop my screen share then, and we can continue the conversation.
I think it gives us a pretty good idea of what we're looking at here. I mean, I know that we talked to a lot of people going into this, and it looks like about a little over a third of the people who are in participation use the IPaC website. So pretty excited about that. I use it myself every once in a while before going out into the field. So yeah, why don't we do a quick segue? So our August webinar is going to be focused on the 404 assumption, policy, and practice. And so, of course, we'll probably be talking a little bit about Florida, but there's a few other states where this is active as well, or being proactively looked at as something to move towards. So hope to see you in mid-August around this. And that, I just want to say thank you all for taking some time to jump on here today. And we're going to go ahead and jump into our discussion. So I'm going to pull out of the screen share. And it looks like people have hands raised. I don't know if that's because you're really excited about what we've talked about, or if you have a question. If you have a question, you're going to need to, again, scroll down to the bottom of your page and click on that little Q&A. Click on that and then type your question in. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and kick us off with kind of a more general conversation. Lane, I wanted to go ahead and invite you to talk a little bit about how you and your team are using IPaC at Michigan Department of Transportation.
Sure. So like I mentioned in my introduction, I review local road projects for potential environmental impacts and help guide the transportation agencies through the NEPA process. So first, we require the IPaC species list to be submitted with any NEPA review to make sure that the local agencies are aware of what species might be present in their project area and what species need to be addressed. So they'll have to address all of those in their response to us, any species listed on the IPaC species list. Also, our local agencies use the IPaC determination keys a lot. So I primarily review CE projects, like I mentioned, and they're submitted mostly by rural road commissions or small cities and villages who don't always have a lot of environmental staff on board or any environmental staff on board. So they use the determination key to kind of do an initial assessment for any potential impacts on threatened and endangered species and to determine if additional review is needed. Especially the Michigan determination key, we've been using a lot since that has been introduced. It's been really effective at reducing how frequently I need to follow up with the agencies to get more information. Sometimes they leave kind of vague work descriptions, but in reviewing their questions and the responses to the questions in the determination key, I can find out a lot more about the project. And I also really like that the key doesn't just ask questions, but it also kind of gives guidance along the way, which I think is helpful for the local agencies who are maybe not as knowledgeable about T&E. So it's been a big help, like both for our review process on the DOT side, but also to the local agencies.
That's great. And so on just a very practical note, do you enjoy using it, Lane? And does your team enjoy using it?
Yeah, we do. I mean, like I said, it's really been helpful in learning more about the process and getting more information from the local agencies. And it's very simple to use. I mean, I have like a little cheat sheet I send the local agencies if they're ever confused, but for the most part, they all are able to navigate it without any issues. So yeah, I mean, we definitely are grateful for it, especially the Michigan determination key is, like I said, very helpful to us. It really cuts down how much back and forth we have to do with local agencies.
Great. Yeah, it's great when a piece of software, and I'm thinking in Victoria's shoes here for a minute, having something that you put together and you've got tons of people help building it. It all seems like invisible magic to some of us who are in the biological sciences, and how that turns out and does it work, you know? So yeah, that's great to hear.
Yeah.
So thank you. So I wanted, in a similar thread here, I want to go over to Michelle here with NC DOT, and I know that I'd love for you to maybe tell everybody a little bit about the very high level what the Atlas program is, and then at least your high level awareness of how the IPaC data is being utilized by Atlas as well. So Michelle.
Yes, hi. So I am, like I said, my intro, the business team lead for Project Atlas. And what Atlas is it is consists of 3 different applications that provides everyone at DOT, as well as our MPOs and RPOs and other people that are working on North Carolina DOT projects, a way to get the most up-to-date GIS data whenever we're starting off in the project delivery process. We're at 800 data layers right now that are available through Project Atlas. And one of those layers is the IPaC data, and that is very useful for our biologists to be able to, kind of get an idea of what is there, looking at critical habitat, as well as for our upper management or program managers or project managers to be able to see, as one of the data layers that's available, to be able to see what potential effects that they could run into with either new roads or expansions, bridge replacements, things like that down here in NC.
Yeah, that's great. And I can kind of speak also here as a collaborator, as a consultant, one who utilizes IPaC data for locating specific information around projects, and then also working with NC DOT on exactly that, road expansions, bridge replacements. And we're working on a project right now in the Pisgah National Forest out near the creative forestry. And so we utilize IPaC data to get things set up before we head in the field. Of course, that's US Forest Service land. So we've got a whole list of Forest Service species and species of concern and watch and things that we're looking at there as well. But yeah, IPaC is just such a great place to start. And I'm gonna have to play around with Atlas a little bit more with you sometime, Michelle, and get a better idea of where that's going. But just thinking of all of these data sets that are growing across the board, one of the things that I get really excited about is the expansion or the possibility of having more granular focused data around, with the National Wetlands Inventory and where known wetland cells and units are, where they're most likely to be. So Shelby, I want to direct a question over to you. And maybe this is a question for you and Victoria to answer, but I want to start it with you because, as you were going through the process. One of the things that as I've been looking at IPaC over the last year, seeing, okay, we can turn on these wetland layers now. And so playing with the idea of the wetland units, the NWI units, like, is there a long-term goal with Fish and Wildlife Service to potentially migrate IPaC and the NWI mapper into one location? Or is it, with IPaC, is it sort of in lieu of, or is it just something to run parallel to? So anyways, hope to, yeah, Shelby, what would you add to that? Oh, your sound is not coming through your line, Shelby.
I'll actually defer that because she talked to Megan. I'm not sure if you guys discussed at all the NWI mapper. Did you guys talk about that at all?
Actually, we didn't. Currently, there's no plans to marry them and merge them up. But we do all IPaC. 90% of what you're getting through IPaC, we're actually kind of the delivery service. We're the middleman. We're collecting data from different places through web service. So we're not creating or housing our own unique data that you're not going to get through somewhere else. And NWI is the same. So if you came in and used the mapper tool through IPaC, we're reaching out and doing that directly through their mapper's web service. So you should be seeing the exact same information that you're seeing if you were using their mapper. I don't think they have the API. We do have a way to connect things, and Jeremy and I have talked for future maybe digital connections. We can allow other websites to use IPaC through a web service as well on their end to come in and get that list of species and resources and wetlands pulled through into your native platform. So I think for right now, we're going to keep it that we're each our own domain, but we're trying to not duplicate, just kind of connect to each other.
That's great. So, again, like kind of thinking about things from the perspective of NWI and then what you guys are working on. Are you guys under different funding arms? Like, where does the funding for IPaC come from? I think that's always useful information for the consultants and other regulatory agents who might use IPaC out there.
I believe we are. Our funding is a lot through the same kind of streams that you see come through for consultation biology. That, when we think about buckets of funding and cost codes. So we're looking, there's funding for recovery, and there's funding for listing, and there's funding for, I think NWI does have its own funding stream for wetlands, and then IPaC falls under a lot of our funding stream comes through consultation biology, because that's really the process that we're aimed, like that IPaC's kind of stepping in and taking a big role in.
Great.
But we do.
Go ahead.
I was just say NWI is one of our sister programs in Headquarters Ecological Services. So there is lots of opportunity for us to collaborate more in the future.
Okay, great. So I saw that you had flagged one of the questions that you wanted to address here, Victoria. So Allie Whitehead was asking about, running into some of the tech issues with iPad. So yeah, you want to just go ahead and address that? What are the plans for updates to avoid the issues? And I would add, when are we moving from beta into active V1 or whatever you guys are going to call it?
So to clarify a couple things. Somebody also asked about the sites, beta and production. They aren't linked to one another. I did put all of the links in the chat, so hopefully everybody saw them in the chat. And yes, we run into these issues a lot. Right now, IPaC, all of our versions, production and beta, and our development stacks that are not out there for other people to be testing in, all of them are on physical servers, and some of these are getting a little outdated. So when I mentioned in my PowerPoint that we're moving to the cloud, we are super excited to be moving to the cloud because that's going to give us a lot more bandwidth. It's going to protect us from some of these server outages. And I will apologize, this was just a miscommunication. One of our folks ran an update and didn't realize we were doing a demo because I forgot to tell them we were doing a demo. So they were putting an update in to fix something. So, but most of the times when you're running into this, it's issues around bandwidth and the host environment that we live in right now, which is called Ecos. And when we migrate over to the cloud and we have our new home in what's called Ecosphere, a lot of these issues should improve. So I appreciate you guys being patient with us as our technology has hit some road bumps. And we'll continue to keep our beta site indefinitely. Really, we use it as a mirror for production as kind of the last stop before we go to production. And we do that intentionally because when we do something like a determination key, before we release it on our live production site where it's in full functionality, we need everybody to be able to test it. If we've developed that with an office and a sister agency and other people, we can't have it in an internal environment where only we can get to it. So we're always going to have this kind of testing and training beta platform as last stop before we go out. But usually when you see something on beta, it's not long before it's getting released. We roll things out from beta to production pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's great. I was reminded, actually, there was a time where I think one of our folks was doing a demo to some consulting company about 1.5 years ago, Victoria, and in the middle of her doing the presentation, my partner was actually changing the slides, didn't realize she was in a presentation. So the slides were like changing as she was talking. She's like, oh, what's happening? We're like, oh, we didn't know you were doing a demo. So anyways, one of the things, the joys of technology, the beauty of it once it's in place, but yes, getting the system down. One of the things you mentioned, you kind of were leaning into IPaC being sort of like TurboTax for Section 7 or 10 consultation. I love that because one of the things someone said to my partner one time at a meeting was, doing all of the wetland delineation forms and all the stream forms is kind of like doing your personal taxes all day, every day. And I was just, I wouldn't go quite that far because I would much rather do these forms than personal taxes. Or wait, maybe I'd rather do the other way around. Well, anyway, but just seeing like where you guys are going with IPaC too, it just, everyone is really waking up to the capability of like, once we can refine these technologies into a really deliverable platform, it's going to make all of our work easier and allow us to be better scientists in our field. And also, whether we're on the regulatory side, consulting side, NGO, somewhere in the middle, some cross collaboration there, and like all of this is really helping improve all of our processes. And as more data becomes available, the more efficient those are going to become. So Victoria, thank you again for helping me put this together today. Shelby, thank you for putting on the demo. And Lane and Michelle, both thank you so much for representing some of the states and what you all are doing. I mean, this is an exciting time to be alive in this industry and see where things are changing. So yeah, good stuff. So great. Well, thank you all for your time. We're at 1:30 right now, and I don't see any other questions coming in. So Victoria, do you want to share any last thoughts? Lane or Michelle, would you like to leave anybody with anything before we push off?
I was going to say, if anybody has any questions about Project Atlas here at NCDOT, you can reach us at atlas@ncdot.gov.
Great, thank you, Michelle. Lane, anything from you?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay, great, thank you. And so one thing, for those of you who have not been here before, as this was recorded, we will put it up in a place where you can access the recording. And then also Victoria sent me a nice spreadsheet or a 8.5 by 11 that has all the links to a lot of the stuff that's supporting IPaC. So we will also put that in there as a support document so you can have access to those links as well. So otherwise, thank you all so much and look forward to seeing some of you in August. And Victoria, let's do a follow-up sometime and we'll talk again soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your time.